Hi YouTube. Today I wanted to share a recipe for sticky buns. Just to give you a little bit of history about this recipe, it's actually really simple. You don't even have to know how to make bread dough or anything. And it was actually a recipe that a church that I used to attend, that we had a woman in there that was a caterer. She was a professional caterer and she did lots of really good food. But one of the things that she was really famous for at our church were her sticky buns. And I love the sticky buns. I was pretty new in the country, so I didn't really know anything about how to make it, that it was made with bread dough or any of that. And one day I was talking to someone that actually was a volunteer that worked with her, and she kind of didn't give me a recipe, but she kind of explained to me how to make it. And they actually do turn out very similar to how the recipe that I was used to eating at our church. So it's something I really enjoy doing. It's not something I make very often. It's certainly not going to be on the list of healthy things to make. But if you need something to take to maybe someone's house, or you just like to make it for breakfast, or even for a snack for, like on Easter Sunday or something, this is something really good that as a church we really enjoyed, and so I wanted to share this recipe. It's the simplest thing that you'll ever make. It's not complicated. So let me share the ingredients with you and go over the process. Okay, here are the ingredients. Some brown sugar, 1 loaf of frozen bread dough that's been defrosted. So I think the name of the company is Rhodes, that I use their bread dough, and they have it in rolls and also in loaves. So this is the loaf that I've defrosted. I took the frozen bread dough and I took a dish towel, which I wet thoroughly, and I put it on top of the bowl because I wanted to keep the bread dough from drying out. If I didn't get to it quickly enough, I didn't want it to completely defrost and then start drying out. So I used this dish towel, and then also a little bit of flour, and the flour is just for dusting because I will be rolling this out. And then also 1 stick of butter. I tend to use unsalted butter. I feel like I can always salt butter, but I can't take the salt out. I always buy unsalted butter. And then we're just going to need a pan, and then we will need a cookie sheet. So let's get started. Okay, I start out by melting 1 stick of butter. Depending on how much bread dough you're making, I actually think the stick of butter is probably a little bit more than I need, but I figured I haven't made this recipe in quite a while, and as I mentioned, I wasn't given a specific recipe. I was just kind of told how to do it, and so I've had to play with the proportions, and I generally use 1 stick of butter, and I do feel like it makes a little bit more of the mixture than I need, but it's, like I said, it's a treat. It's not something that we're making every day. I haven't made it in maybe even years, if not months. So I basically am going to be melting the butter. And once the butter is completely melted, we're going to be adding the brown sugar. I forgot to mention that I am actually melting this butter over low heat. I don't want it to start turning brown. I just want to get it to where it's completely melted. Okay, so now the butter is melted, and we're going to start adding 1/3 cup of brown sugar at a time, because like I mentioned, I don't have a specific recipe, so I kind of start with small amounts, and until I get the right amount of sugar and it comes together, and you'll see when it comes together. So I have added up 1 cup of brown sugar, which is a lot of brown sugar, but you can certainly cut back on the butter and then you won't need as much brown sugar. It's basically how much mixture you want on the sticky bun dough. So I'm going to let this cook a little bit so that it comes together a little bit more. We're going to move on to rolling out the dough. And I'll just let this cook slowly over low heat. Just a side note, I want to show you all my rolling pin. This is actually my mom's rolling pin that she bought in 1958. She actually did burn it. She said like the first year she had it, she and my father were making stuff and they burnt the rolling pin. But this is really sentimental to me because it belonged to my mom, and it is very old. My goal is to get this dough rolled out as big as possible. Obviously not so thin that it rips, but I basically work at it so that it keeps getting thinner. At this point, it has been rolled out quite big. So what I'm going to do is move it to the cookie sheet that I'm going to be baking this on. And I'll roll it out a little bit more because some of it does tend to bounce back. So I'm going to roll it out a little more to help with the shape. I also wanted to show you that the sugar mixture is pretty much cooked, and at this point I would actually let it cool down some because we're going to be spreading it. I could probably have used a little bit less butter, but anyway, at this point I would let it just sit so that it cools down because you're going to be handling it and it's too hot to handle right now. Okay, now I'm going to spread this mixture on here. Then I take it and spread it as much as possible on here because I want to make sure all of the dough is covered. And as you can see, this has the butter in here. I try to keep out some of the butter, like the excess butter. I didn't want to put too much of it in here. So as I was pouring it out of the pan, I left some of the butter in there. But I'm basically trying to just spread it out. And we're going to be cutting it up, and it's going to kind of spread out anyway, but what I'm going to do now, the next step, is to take this dough and start rolling it. Once I've finished rolling it, I'm going to cut it into pieces, and I'm just going to spread the pieces throughout. Okay, I've taken all the pieces and broken them up into separate little pieces. They don't have to look attractive or anything because they are going to puff up, and as I mentioned, this is supposed to be like kind of broken up pieces. It's not supposed to look like a cinnamon bun. It's just like torn up pieces of bread almost, but in a dough form. So we're going to put this in the oven at 350 degrees. So this cooked in the oven for about 15 minutes. You have to kind of look at your own oven because ovens do vary, and so different ovens will take different amount of time, but this is really delicious. I know it's maybe hard to tell how but it smells amazing, and some parts of it you can see that they're crusty, and it's just brown sugar. You really can't go wrong with brown sugar and butter on the dough. It smells delicious and it really does taste delicious. And I probably cut it into pieces that were bigger than what she would cut into. She probably cut into smaller little pieces. So mine are probably less covered in the brown sugar mixture than hers were, but she had pieces like this where they were cooked, because the bottom, if it was touching the pan, cooked more than some parts of it that were cooked less. So they definitely, they taste delicious. I wish you could just see how wonderful this actually does taste. But I want you to give this a try and hope that you will enjoy this recipe. It's something I remember from my childhood, eating at the church and really looking forward to it whenever they had these sticky buns. So I hope you will enjoy making this for yourself. I hope you enjoyed getting to learn how to make sticky buns, and I hope you will try these in your own home. If you like my video, I would ask that you please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you.